Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Common Council for September 26, 2022. And we'll start off with first item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. First item is 1.1 on the agenda, and this is the land acknowledgement.
Over to you, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Deputy. And certainly in this week of truth and reconciliation, I would like to acknowledge the leadership of our staff in leading our council on this journey. The land acknowledgement. The land on which the city of St. John, or Mennequist, is situated is the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik. The Wolastoqiyik, along with their indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and Pescatawamacadie, signed peace and friendship treaties with the British Crown in the 1700s that protected their rights to lands and resources. Let us pause and reflect.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the agenda is item 1.2, and that is the national anthem. And Deputy Mayor, I believe you had the name of our guest.
Yes, Shayla Drew from Kennebecasis Valley High School. Welcome, Shay.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
That was lovely. Thank you so much, Shay. I'd just like to take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Larry Hill and Harold Peddle. They're from the City of St. John Salvage Corp of the Fire and Police Department, and they're here tonight as their Sergeant of Arms. So welcome, gentlemen, and thank you very much for coming in. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the agenda is item 2.1, approval of minutes of August the 22nd.
Can I get a motion for approval of the minutes, please? Councillor Hickey, seconded by Councillor, who's that, Stewart? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Motion carried. Next item, Common Clerk.
Deputy, my apology. It was brought to our attention just before the meeting that there was one correction to make in the minutes, and that was the minutes had shown Councillor Radwan calling a disclosure of conflict of interest on a particular item, and it was the wrong item. And I'll just ask Councillor Radwan if you could outline that for us, your conflict of interest from the minutes.
Yeah, so it was actually a conflict on the Ashburn Lake Road interchange, not the Funday Key.
And so, Your Worship, could we have a new motion approving the minutes as amended with that correction?
Perfect. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes as amended, please? Councillor Hickey, Councillor Radwan. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda, and there are some additions that came from Committee of the Whole, so I'll just identify those. The The items being added to the agenda would be 17.1, compressed work week trial, 17.2, property at 450 Falls View Drive, 17.3, memorandum of understanding with Cook Aquaculture, 17.4, sale of land off Barker Street, 17.5, a motion with respect to Truth and Reconciliation, and 17.6, appointment of CAO.
Thank you, Common Clerk. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Councillor Harris and Councillor Ogden. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Motion's carried. Thank you. Item 4.
Item 4 is disclosure of conflict of interest, if there are any.
Oh, I don't see any. Thank you.
Next item is the consent agenda.
Councillor Sullivan, would you be so kind?
I move the consent agenda, which is 5.1 through 5.3 inclusive.
Been moved and seconded on the question. All those in favor signify by, I'm sorry.
That's okay, Deputy. I'd like to pull 5.1 actually, if we can.
Pamela Bentley. You what?
I'd like to pull 5.1.
You want to pull it? Oh, okay. All right. We'll put that as
That will become 14.1, Your Worship.
14.1.
So the new motion, Deputy, would be to move 5.2 and 5.3.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I get a second to them? Okay, Councillor Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay. And item 6.
Item 6 is members' comments.
Okay, who do we have? Councillor Hickey, you're first up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And this time I have a timer. It's new.
Yes, you
Second
are on a
time.
timer.
Very exciting. I just wanted to offer briefly, the August 2022 homelessness data is out from the Human Development Council. Numbers going into our cold winter months are not great. 148 people experiencing homelessness with an estimation of 61 of those sleeping rough is becoming an increasing challenge for us. I'm proud that this council took the steps to make sure that we're taking action on it and coming up with a plan, an immediate plan for the winter, and I think it will hopefully help to alleviate issues like that. But it doesn't forego the long-term structural challenges we have, whether it be in housing or mental health service or many of the other wraparound services that these folks need. Our housing crisis continues. Thankfully, tonight we've got another motion that will help aim for the city to further address that. Also, on Sunday, along with yourself, I was there to kick off the 50+ Friendship Games in St. John, which is a great opportunity for folks who are 50+ to partake in some activity across the city. And there was a nice opening ceremony with the closing ceremony being on Thursday. I know my mother was quite upset when many folks referred to 50+ as seniors, but well, I'll leave it at that. I also had the chance to go to Fredericton and visit Marcel Lebrun's facility in the 12 neighborhoods. A very interesting concept. It's getting people housed quickly. It's part of the solution, not the whole solution when it comes to housing, and an interesting concept. Certainly, that seems to be addressing some issues in Fredericton as they reach, I think, 24 occupants as of now, with aims to build 90. As of now, they're producing 1 home a week in their modular factory, which is pretty impressive. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Radwan, you're next. Oh, no, I'm sorry, Councillor Sullivan, you're next.
Thanks, Deputy. First of all, really important for landowners in Milledgeville. We are taking applications now for the nuisance deer management program. So city is currently accepting applications from landowners in Milledgeville, If you live within the designated areas for the nuisance deer management program and wish to have your properties assessed by the Provincial Department of Natural Resources and Energy Development for nuisance deer harvesting permits, landowners must apply for these permits each year. Applications can be found on the City of St. John website. Common Council passed the nuisance deer management strategy in February 2019 to assist in managing the urban deer population with Lyme disease. The program is managed by the Provincial Department of Natural Resources and Energy Development and takes into account lot size, safety concerns, and the number of permits issued. So more information on the City of St. John website. Just reminding folks of safety practices. Carry a mask so that you can wear it. Be aware that we have folks in our community who are immunocompromised and need that extra protection. Continue to wash your hands and sneeze into your elbow pits. Been a tough week in the sports that I am involved with. My summer passion is sailing and my winter passion is curling. And within the past few weeks, we lost Michael Holt, a prominent sailor in family in Milledgeville, and was very much a gentleman. Anybody who knew Mike, as competitive as I am, he is the antithesis. He is competitive but kind, and was one of the kindest sailors I ever had the privilege to sail with and against. So our condolences out to Mike's family. And up the road, but certainly curlers in St. John would be familiar with Jamie and Bob Brennan, gentlemen curlers out of Fredericton who have curled in St. John often, and we lost them this past week as well. So to the sailing and curling communities, tough week. Our hearts go out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Councillor Radwan.
Thank you, Deputy. So this past week, I did get to attend a conference with the 8 cities, and it is Municipalities Week. So we got to do some collaborating there up in Fredericton, and so that was a great event. Something else that I've gotten to attend over the last few weeks was the Community Connections Fair that the YMCA put on. This was a really great fair for our newcomers to go and connect with a lot of our not-for-profit organizations so that they would know what kind of services that they would have accessible to them. It was really great to see. They had a really good turnout as well. And something else that I got to was the Chamber mixer. So Chamber just started opening up their mixers again, and so they had their first one. And I would encourage any entrepreneurs, especially new or people that have been in business for a while, to reach out and get connected, because this is a great way to collaborate with other entrepreneurs and find out what's happening in the city. The other big thing that I wanted to mention is that September the 30th is certainly recognized by the federal government as the Truth and Reconciliation Day, and City had as well for staff. And we all have our ribbons on today. Thank you to staff for organizing so many things. But I think it's extremely important for us to actually take the time to reflect upon what happened in the schools, the residential schools, and the continuous challenges that our Indigenous communities face today. And to think about what can we do to improve these situations as we go forward.
Thank you, Councillor. For myself, I just want to say that, my heart goes out to the communities in Atlantic Canada that suffered so greatly by the hurricane this weekend. We thank the neighbors and the people that helped out. I also want to recognize St. John Energy for assisting out in Rothesay and going all the way to Summerside to help them out restoring their power. Did attend the Cities of New Brunswick workshops this week, starting on Thursday, and found it very interesting to get to meet all the mayors in the province and see what their perspective was on things like municipal reform and so on. And I was pleased to be joined on Saturday by Councillor Killen, Harris, and Councillor Radwan. So those are interesting meetings for sure. Just for your information, UNBSJ will be commemorating the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation by presenting the Fall Indigenous Film Series, September 27th to the 29th. And you can check out their website for more details on that. Thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next item is a proclamation. It's item 7.1 on your agenda. It's for National Day of Truth and Reconciliation.
Whereas following the closing of the last residential school in the late 1990s, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada was established, which carried out extensive research and heard from residential school survivors, their families, and members of the community. And whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission work resulted in its final report, released in 2015, which found that residential schools resulted in a complete disruption to Indigenous communities, ongoing and intergenerational trauma, the loss of language and cultural practices, poverty, and disproportionate rate of incarceration of Indigenous people, and hundreds of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission final report contained 94 calls to action, which appeal to all levels of government, organization, and individuals to make concrete changes in society to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance reconciliation. And whereas call to action number 80 calls for National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, intended to educate and remind Canadians about the history of residential schools, honor victims, survivors, and their families, and ensure that the public commemoration of this legacy is a critical part of the reconciliation process. And whereas the Government of Canada established September 30th as a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to commemorate the tragic legacy of residential schools in Canada. And whereas the recent discovery of unmarked graves at former residential school sites across Canada has increased the urgency to meaningfully address the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. And whereas the City of St. John, or Manicwest, is situated on the traditional territory of the Wolastoqiyik and their Indigenous neighbors, the Mi'kmaq and Passamaquoddy, and whereas the City of St. John is committed to advancing reconciliation through strengthening relationships with Indigenous governments, organizations, and communities, and through education and advocacy efforts. Now, therefore, I, Deputy Mayor John McKenzie, do hereby proclaim September 30th as National Day of Truth and Reconciliation in the City of St. John, and encourage all to pause and reflect and learn on this important day. Next item, Common Clerk.
Deputy, yes, another proclamation, item 7.2 on your agenda, and this one is for Rail Safety Week.
Whereas it is in the public's interest to raise citizens' awareness of the dangers of ignoring safety warnings at level crossings and trespassing on rail property to reduce avoidable deaths, injuries, and damage caused by incidents involving trains and citizens. And whereas every year more than 2,100 North Americans are killed or seriously injured because of unsafe behavior around tracks and trains, every one of these incidents and deaths are preventable. By looking out for each other and working together, we can help keep our communities safe and prevent injuries and fatalities on or near railway property. And whereas safety is a core value at CN, and we continue to take all necessary steps to protect our employees, communities, customers, vendors, and partners with the objective of reducing rail-related injuries and fatalities to zero. As we safely serve our customers and keep the economy moving, we remain committed in our efforts to educate the public on rail safety. And whereas Operation Lifesaver is a public-private partnership whose aim is to work with the public, rail industry, governments, police services, media, and others to raise rail safety awareness to help prevent accidents and injuries at rail crossings in your community and ensure everyone's safety on and around railroad infrastructure year-round. And whereas rail safety is a shared responsibility, now therefore I, Deputy Mayor John McKenzie of St. John, do hereby proclaim the week of September 19th to 25th, 2022 as Rail Safety Week in the City of St. John. Next item, Common Clerk.
Deputy Mayor, two more proclamations at this meeting. So next item is 7.3, Wrongful Conviction Day proclamation.
Okay. Whereas Wrongful Conviction Day is designated as an annual international day to recognize the tremendous personal, social, and legal costs associated with wrongful criminal convictions. And whereas this day recognizes those persons who have been forced to endure the tremendous consequences brought by a wrongful criminal conviction, and whereas the purpose of this day is to inform and educate the broader international community on the causes, consequences, and complications associated with wrongful criminal convictions. More information on that day can be found at wrongfulconvictionday.com. And whereas it is important to raise awareness in order to work toward the prevention of further wrongful convictions and to direct the public's attention to this issue and generate support and understanding. And whereas Wrongful Conviction Day was spearheaded by the Wrongful Conviction Day Committee, and now many organizations are leading events in its honor, the committee is committed to raising awareness of and advocating against wrongful convictions globally. Now, therefore, I, Deputy Mayor John McKenzie, City of St. John, do hereby declare October the 2nd, 2022 as Wrongful Conviction Day in the City of St. John.
And the final proclamation, Deputy Mayor, is 7.4 on your agenda. It's FASD Awareness Month proclamation.
Thank you. Whereas fetal alcohol spectrum disorder is a diagnostic term used to describe impacts on the brain and body of individuals prenatally exposed to alcohol, FASD is a lifelong disability. Individuals with FASD will experience some degree of challenges in their daily living and need support with motor skills, physical health, learning, memory, attention, communication, emotional regulation, and social skills to reach their full potential. Each individual with FASD is unique and has areas of both strengths and challenges. And whereas FASD-NL is a pan-provincial organization that educates, provides support and resources, and raises awareness about fetal alcohol spectrum disorder in Newfoundland and Labrador and Atlantic Canada. And whereas FASD-NL is leading a 3-year FASD prevention, awareness, training, and collaborative action project in 4 Atlantic provinces. And whereas FASD Awareness Month is devoted to raising awareness of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, FASD, to improve prevention of FASD and diagnosis and support for individuals with FASD, and broad public awareness helps put FASD on the map. And now, therefore, I, Deputy Mayor John McKenzie of St. John, do hereby declare the month of September as FASD Awareness Month in the City of St. John. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next item on the agenda is under the presentation section, and it's a presentation under item 5.1 from ProKids.
Okay, over to you, Commissioner Hamilton.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. It's my pleasure to introduce our next presenter to council. And as a service delivered through our growth and community services area, I see the value from both the community and staff perspective with the ProKids program, and how it really supports the needs of families and youth in our community in providing increasing access to recreation, arts and culture. On this 20th anniversary year, I want to acknowledge in particular the commitment of the city's volunteer ProKids Advisory Committee and their dedication to the ProKids program. Their member roster includes educators, business professionals, community service professionals, and even former ProKids who are paying it forwards. Running a charitable service requires a strong and passionate volunteer base willing to show up not only for monthly meetings, but also for various fundraisers and outreach activities. That amounts to hundreds of volunteer hours every year to ensure ProKids can reach the families who need our support. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize their incredible community service. And with that, I will now pass the floor over to the chair of the ProKids Advisory Committee, Pat Steeves, to deliver tonight's presentation.
Thank you for being here, Pat. We look forward to your presentation. We normally allot 15 minutes, including questions.
Fantastic.
And so you're on your way.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor and members of council, thank you for having us this evening. We'd love to really share what we've been doing with ProKids. So as most of you know, ProKids has been around for 20 years, helping the youth of St. John. So most children in St. John don't get access to recreation just by sheer family. And ProKids works to break down those barriers for them. So just as an organization, we've been able to, through the years, help many, many kids. So through this slide, we can see that the placements grew gradually through the years, and even to the point where in 2016 we had our best year ever, with over 2,000 placements. So that was done through a lot of outreach with newcomers coming to St. John, and just again with the public knowledge of what exactly the program does. So we break down who needs ProKids. Our child poverty rate in 2002 was 36.4%, and in 2022, 32.4%. So we've been able to move that needle a little bit, but the need is still significant for youth in St. John. So I'd like to just share one testimonial that we received from a parent that we've been able to help their child. So I've struggled to pay for sports. I'm a single mom. I've been through night school and worked up to 3 jobs at a time. It isn't easy. ProKids has given my daughter the ability to make new friends, try new things, and gain so much confidence. And we are beyond thankful. And I think that sentiment echoes just about every child that we help in the program. Through their parents as well. A lot of parents don't like to ask for help. That's difficult. But when we can open the door to say we are here to help you and we are here to partner with you, then that helps that conversation. Just another testimonial again that we received. ProKids has been instrumental. ProKids has been an instrumental support for my kids' activities since we migrated to Canada. As a parent starting a new life in Canada with kids, it wasn't easy. With ProKids' help, my children were able to adapt, make new friends, and develop skills they can use when they grow up. So again, somebody else that we had a testimonial from, and that just shows that ProKids puts that child in recreation, but it helps on a larger scale than that, right? Recreation helps with life skills, with just social aspects, and just encompasses everything that a youth needs. So this just shows the breakdown a little bit more. And in 2021, for the first time, soccer beat out our front runner of hockey and gymnastics. So we're seeing a much diverse interest in youth. Obviously, in our corner of the world, hockey is always big, but we're seeing an influx in different opportunities. And we're not just sport. That's one of the things that we talk to individuals all the time, and they think that we just do sport. We do the arts as well, and we do culture, and we just show that we will allow that child to do just about anything that they have an interest in. Or at least help and find the right path for them. And this was another one that we did, which just shows that we do more than registration fees. So we had a large donation from a group with soccer gear. So we partnered with the Newcomer Center at Crescent Valley, and we actually were able to donate this soccer gear. And from my understanding, the stock was depleted in about 3 days. So a lot of kids were able to get some equipment to help them again, just find that recreation. And then we do partner with another program again, Top Corner, which is run by Chris Green, who's a local firefighter. That was founded 12 years ago, which is a free hockey program for inner city youth. to just get them exposed to the game and teach them more than hockey, right? We're talking life skills, we're talking social skills. And then we do a program as well that's in the school system called SPARK. So SPARK stands for Sports, Arts, Recreation, Culture. And that program is designed to expose children to different recreations of their choice. So instead of making that full commitment that you're going to go for a full, guitar lesson program that's maybe 6 or 7 weeks, we allow them to get exposed to a certain program for a couple weeks, see if they like it, and then allow them to or give them the opportunity to apply to Pro Kids, and then the funding comes so they can continue that that recreation. And then through the last couple of years, we've really focused on expanding our reach. So being in different places where traditionally we wouldn't be, but we may see a need to get a little bit more exposure to what people can actually understand what we do. It's shocking sometimes that the program's been around for 20 years. I still talk to people, and they still say, "What exactly do you guys do? What is it?" So just getting that message out and broadening sort of our reach in those areas. So this was a great highlight for us. It was a great highlight for St. John as well. When the Memorial Cup was in town, we actually hosted a watch party for kids from local community centers. So they were able to come to the Training Convention Center and watch Game 6, which was a very exciting game, which the Sea Dogs ultimately came up on top. And on a big screen, be treated to red carpet, a tour of the Hockey Hall of Fame exhibit, which is something that they probably wouldn't have gone to, and filled up on some pizza and treats. So we stuffed them full of sugar and sent them back home. And this is, again, just a show of a couple of the community initiatives and community support that we receive, not only in St. John, but in neighboring municipalities, Rothesay, Quispamsis, and Grand Bay Westfield. And we just like to say that we like to support the neighboring municipalities that also support us. So we've made a focus to really get into those municipalities and go to events and show that, Pro Kids is not just for St. John. It's for also youth that are in either Quispamsis, Rothesay, or Grand Bay Westfield. And this is just our team. So obviously myself as the chair. We have a member, Fraser Wells, Jen Oliver, who's a past chair, Councillor Stewart. We have Councillor John Bailmans from Grand Bay Westfield, Councillor Dave Brown from Rothesay, another member, Jordan Tracy, our representative from Quispamsis, which is Holly Knight, advisory committee member Ben O'Neill, Leah Secord, Jason Court, which is in attendance today, Tamara Steele. We have member Chris Trotter, Allison Olson, and Steve Robar. And then we have our Pro Kids manager, Lori Lambert, and our coordinator, Ben Barbeau. So in November, we'll be hosting our 20-year anniversary, which will be our annual fundraising dinner, which is our largest fundraiser. And that's where I find we can really connect with our partners and show them what exactly we've been up to. But I wanted to come here this evening and really show council exactly what we've been up to in 20 years. We've done a lot of great work. There's lots of great work ahead of us, and a lot of hard work, because we have to, we're reaching a small sector of the need, and it's about and for us it's how do we expand that reach? How do we bring it full circle, I guess you would say, for us. But I'd be glad to take any questions from councillors.
Okay, thank you very much, Pat. Any councillors have any questions or comments? Councillor Radwan.
Thank you so much, Deputy, and thank you so much for your presentation. This is very exciting. I don't know how much the public can see that fundraising dinner is November the 17th at the Delta Brunswick at 6. How could somebody get tickets to that?
So we do sell them. I believe online they can purchase them.
Wonderful.
They're $125, and you will receive a tax receipt.
Oh, that's great. And, I think this is a great example of how the region collaborating can do something so beneficial for our community. I mean, the youth are, they're just such an integral part of our community in the future. And every child deserves the right to go and have swimming classes or guitar or whatever sort of interest that they have. I'm just also wondering how, if somebody needed Pro Kids, how do they apply? How much financial information do they have to disclose?
So it's actually, that's a great question. Thank you, Councillor. It's a great question. Most of our applications come through online. We do get some applications which are through the conventional method of pen and paper. There's really very little financial or no financial questions that we ask. We just try to determine that there is an actual need with the family. So that's done through a referral or a reference system and referrals, stuff like that. So yeah, it's not, that's one of the questions that, or one of the barriers that we find is that most people don't like to want to disclose if they have a financial need, right? The stigma is always there that, it's, I won't qualify, or it won't be for me, or what I would invite everybody to, if you know somebody or you think that you would be in that position to, hey, it's we're here to help, and we'd like every child to be in some sort of recreation.
It's wonderful. It's a great way to build leadership amongst our youth. And I thank you for the presentation, and thank you for all of your hard work and the work of Lori Lambert and the rest of your board. See some great familiar faces there, and I appreciate all of what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Deputy. So no questions, but Pat, I just wanted, I feel like I would be remiss as the councillor who sits on the advisory committee if I didn't give a shout out to all of you. I know we meet once a month. Seems like sometimes it's more often than that, but the amount of work that goes, the work and the volunteers that go into Pro Kids, the amount of good you do, I don't know that it's fully recognized, but I know that the people behind the scenes, you guys are without a doubt the most invested, caring, just good-spirited people. You're headed up, by a great team. I don't know if we saw Lori up there earlier, but Lori Lambert, just what she does, it's beyond the understanding of this council right now that, to me, that's a full-time commitment. What you guys are doing, it is a full-time job, and I know you all hold down full-time jobs. But again, being on the committee itself, I recognize it, and I just want to say thank you. I'm proud, so proud to be part of that team. Keep up the great work, okay? And I'll definitely see you on November the 17th.
One thing I failed to share, but there's actually two advisory committee members that sit on our committee who actually went through the Pro Kids program. So that just shows that if you give somebody an opportunity, they will do good things with it.
Oh, thank you very much. I mean, I got to tell you that, and I say this all the time because it's so true, the organizations and the people and the volunteers that help people in this community have no idea how much, they're remembered in the future. They change those lives, Teachers tell me all the time that I see a student on the street, 10 years after I've taught them, they say, you wouldn't believe what you really taught me. You don't even know. So it's a terrific organization, does terrific work. I've sat on the board. I'm so proud of what you guys do for so many kids, and I really want to thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the agenda, we have another presentation, item 8.2, and this presentation is on the topic of suicide prevention. Here to deliver the presentation is Gregory Zed, a registered social worker, and forensic suicidologist.
Welcome to council, Mr. Zed. We look forward to your presentation. We normally give 15 minutes, time for questions as well. So,
Thank you.
you're off.
We'll have someone coming to get it. Sorry about that. That's part of my 15 minutes.
We'll let this one go for sure.
Thanks. Well, Deputy Mayor and members of council, it's a privilege and a distinct honor to be here this evening. Talking to several council members over the last little while, and most recently, Councillor Paula Rodwin, and talking about suicide in general. And as New Brunswick's only forensic suicidologist, I thought I would take the opportunity to share my expertise with council and answer any questions, and also tell you a bit about what's going on. But I want to make it very clear that as a volunteer and a somewhat semi-retired individual, I operate as an individual volunteer, and I try to promote suicide prevention in areas wherever it can be done. One example is last weekend, September 10th, was World Suicide Day. I was in Woodstock. They had 250 motorcycles there of men going around, and men have the highest rate of suicide. So I was there speaking. So any community throughout New Brunswick that asks for my expertise, at no cost do I charge, and I go and I try to share that expertise that I picked up after 42 and a half years working for addictions and mental health in both the forensic and in the suicide field. So I think our folks left, but I have to say one of the best suicide prevention programs known to human mankind is ProKids. When you get people engaged, you know that they're connected and that the likelihood of suicide is certainly reduced significantly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through some quick slides, but also tell you what's going on here in the city with a group of us. So the impact of suicide, we have approximately 9.5 suicides monthly in the province of New Brunswick. So when you factor it in, we have approximately, and I've done some research, for the last 40 years, we have about 100, 125. Last year, interestingly enough, because of COVID and people living home, the rate was actually down. The amount of depression and anxiety was up, but the actual suicide rate hedged in at 92, I think. So one year you'll have 92. This year we're hedging in around 100, 105, 115. On average, as I say, 100 suicides annually and 300 suicides monthly in Canada. Now, the example I use is if you could imagine a jumbo jet when we get Air Canada back. Now, I don't know whether or not we're going to get 747s here, but let's dream. But if you could imagine one of those 747s on the runway lined up, 12 of those jumbo jets, they go down in a run of a year. That's the number of people who die from suicide in Canada. We actually lose one suicide every 142 minutes in Canada. So it's like the seventh leading cause of death. It's the second leading cause, secondly, among our young people. And I can attest to that because the Chief Coroner's Office under Jerome Ouellette hired me after I left the provincial government, or actually it was Horizon, and I did a study on all the suicides for the Child Death Review Committee for the year 2000. So interview 12 families and intimately get into their families and talk to them for 15 or 20 hours. And in 2003, if you were to Google my name and say Gregory Zed Suicide Research, in 2003, we did a similar study where we interviewed all 125 families in the province of New Brunswick. So we sort of have trends, and the provincial government knows specifically where the target areas could be with high risks and things like that. Now, that is not in any way, shape, or form, and I want to make it very clear, to say that what is being done in our city and in our community isn't good enough. But I tend to be the subject matter expert, and I say that humbly because there's nothing wrong with suicide awareness. We hear an awful lot about it. I tend to like to spend money where it's evidence-based. So you've seen me over the years, almost like a broken record, talking about bridge fencing. Just one example where the research shows uncategorically that bridge fencing stops suicides, that people who impulsively go to the bridge don't shop around for other ways of committing suicide, or I don't like using committing suicide, but suicide. They don't say, oh, darn it, there's a bridge there, so I think what I'll do is I'll use a gun. If you disable people with guns, for example, we take guns away, the rates go down. So where you have controlled things like that, you certainly have it. And the provincial governments over the years, I will say, give them full credit, they have studied the Reversing Falls Bridge. And I think the last minister from the area that promoted it and was just about ready to have fencing was Dr. Doherty. In fact, he called me, he says the cabinet approved it, and then they had a switch of ministers, and then the minister that came in said, well, I want one. If you have one in St. John, I want one on Miramichi. So I talked to Bill Fraser, and I says, like, you got to go to iconic bridges. It's not the 440 bridges that you have to have. It's like Halifax. They have a bridge there. The director of public health, she had the bridge, McDonald Bridge, with the bridge fencing, and the rate is all but eliminated in Halifax, and the rates have gone down. So I want to make that very clear. So the other thing is, it's major public health. We talked about the number of deaths. 5% of adults contemplate suicide. And we know that 1 in 14 employees suffer from depression. And you've seen that. Any HR department will tell you, and we have targeted HR and places like that. Business cost is up there. When you look at it, the New Brunswick scene is $750,000 per person. And in 2020 alone, it was $7.5 billion. And the attempts now, the suicide attempts that you would see, and that is just what we can guesstimate is close to 1 million suicide attempts. So suicide rates are, we'll say, around 100, and for every suicide, there's at least anywhere between 25 and 100 attempts. The problem with attempts, as many of you probably know, they don't get registered. So I attempt suicide. If I don't go to the hospital, I'm not registered. There's not a data bank, so we really don't know. So the experts realize that when they talk to people and they say, have you ever tried this before? Well, if you really must know, I have tried it and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So that's enough about that. And I'm going to fast track here because I'm sure I don't have a watch, but I think I've probably, I got 5-7 minutes. Okay, let's say the rest of the slides really say what the focus could be with emails and how you could target and things like that. But it's a targeted approach. We want to target. If we have and develop a national strategy for suicide, we wanted to target it. We want outcome measures. Okay? So what we did here, and I say that because when I say we, there's lots of people doing stuff. Gary Brown Sr. is doing a tremendous job. He started with the park over in the north end. He then has taken that park and he's taken the heart and he's selling them, and He's got what? He's up to 350, 400 hearts. Awareness. People are on, on Operation White Heart, for those that don't know. He has it on people's properties and stuff like that. And he's got some sort of schedule going on where so much goes for gas and so much for materials and so much for training. And that's what I want to talk about, training. Because when it comes to anything, just like Pro Kids, we know training is important. So having a wife that had 2 strokes, thank God, literally for small mercies, I happened to be home, and the ambulance got her in time. That was about 4 years ago. And then we hit COVID. The last 4 years have been sort of, we've all been through it. So it's not just me, it's all families. So I'd say about a year ago, I said, I think what I'm going to do, because the nonprofit organizations are really hurting raising money. I think I'm going to write a letter, and I wrote a letter. And I thought, I'll put my career on the line, because I think a good Catholic, nothing against any other religion, but good Catholic boy. I started with the Sisters of Charity, and I sprung out from there. And I wrote about 10 or 12 letters, and I collected about $25,000. Now, there is a downside to that story, and I'll come to that in a half a second. What I did then is I went to some of the nonprofits like Hesty House, Sophia House, Coverdale, YMCA, the newcomers, for instance, and on and on and on and on. In fact, in the North End, One Change hosted 7 or 8 different agencies last week. And it was actually very good, because the PC caucus was meeting. So it gave me an opportunity to talk to all the politicians, and they asked me what I was doing. And every nonprofit group that wanted to go to the suicide workshop for free could go. The kits I have here, I don't know if I should say it's a scam, but they're $60, and you have to order them. It's $50, $55 from Calgary, 4 coffee breaks, and 2 lunches. And if you do the math, it's like $152. And the lunches and the coffee breaks are provided by Stone Soup out of Human Development Council. So it's these individuals who are a bit vulnerable, so they learn to cook and prepare. So it's sort of recycled money, and there's no other money going south, if you know what I mean. But I'm only one person, and so there's one organization that said, oh no, we can't give it to you, it's got to be to a charity. So IG Wealth Management gave it to the Boys and Girls Club, and the Boys and Girls Club bought the materials. So we've got a lawyer, and we've got it audited, and every penny is accounted for. So if you look at the $25,000 and you look at the number of people who went free and that kind of stuff, the alternative to that to get money from other organizations is send them, let them pay, and then we'll reimburse them. That doesn't work for charities that don't have any money. So whether we go that route in 2023, as long as people have a trust in me that I'm going to manage the money, and then I'll show a piece of paper that says, here's the original bills, then we can continue to do the training. And we do the training here in the city. We've done it in, this week, the mayor has invited us to Grand Bay in October 15th and 16th, a weekend. We have that sold out. We have another one in December here in the St. John area. That's sold out to 60 people. So what we do is we targeted groups who wants to get training, and we put it on Facebook and say, anyone that can't afford it. And then Gary Brown Sr., maybe I shouldn't be using his name so loosely, but it needs to be publicized. What he does is he gets a list. People go to him and says, geez, Gary, I'd like to go, and he sponsors people. So we do have sponsorship in the city because we're targeting training, this training, and I'll just briefly wind up by saying The training is very simply, we teach people 3 things. I care, I understand, I help. I care, I understand, I'll help. How do you treat and teach people to care? How do you get someone who is a little skittish, I don't want to talk about suicide? How do you get them to come and feel and show compassion? Okay, it might be their job. It might be in their family. So we try to teach the skills of compassion, understanding. Then once a person gets to the point of caring, they can say, tell me something. Help me understand. You've been through a lot. Help me. I just don't get it. It can't be that bad. I mean, help me understand. So you regurgitate. How bad is it? You know what I mean? We don't know. If Brent, for example, Councillor Harris, has a bad, we don't know that. But he might just open up and say, well, geez, you don't understand, I'm not picking on you. Anyway, so that's it. And then now that suicide's on the table, how are we going to help? What are we going to do? What can we do? What could keep you safe, Councillor Lowe, for the next half hour, for the next hour, for the next day? And we work that way until we get a safety plan that's airtight to keep the person. In the meantime, we can't be worried about the infrastructure. You go to the hospital, they send you home. None of that. We have to recruit champions. And these champions are people with training that can keep people safe for now. It's like CPR. You do the CPR, you even learn to use them machines, and that doesn't mean you're not going to use them again. But you teach the skills. So in St. John, Greater St. John, I'm a South Ender originally. We are putting people through from agencies that want to get trained, and right now we can almost put a cross on the agency. Hestie House, done. First Steps, done. Sophia House, done. Coverdale, done. So all the nonprofits, because they're the ones that traditionally have hurt the most in fundraising.
Okay,
How do you do, Mr. Collins? 15 minutes up?
You're good.
Okay, good.
You're good. I've got some questions if you're ready for
Okay,
questions now.
questions.
Councillor Radwan, you're up first.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you so much, Mr. Zed, for your
Great.
presentation. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, I have been affected by suicide. I've had 5 different people in my lives commit suicide, actually. So this is something that I strongly believe in suicide prevention, absolutely. So my question to you is, we all know that there's challenges with our healthcare system. So say someone were to suspect that somebody may commit suicide, what would you recommend, what avenue would you recommend that they go to for help?
Very good question. And you're quite right. All the publicity about how good or bad our healthcare system doesn't often help in the psychological pain and lowering that. But I would ensure that they get in touch with someone. And they may start with a family doctor, for example. Mm-hmm. Family doctors in the province of New Brunswick are the only ones that legally can examine someone and have them further examined at the emergency department under a Form 1.
Okay. And what's a
Secondly,
Form? Can you say what a Form 1 is?
A Form 1 is actually an involuntary admission. Mm-hmm. But we really don't want to go that way. In Calgary, for example, they've started a program, and I'm going to bring it here to New Brunswick, and it's at no cost whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Men, traditionally, 80% suicide, 20% women, but there's a buddy up program. We're going to get men in some of the skills trade, talking to each other, and it's called Buddy Up. That's so great. I've started to send that out. I've been giving out posters, and it's a Buddy Up program, and try to get into where groups of electricians or tradespeople, for example. I think that's part of Gary's program with the Operation Whiteheart, to get in there, to get them talking, and because men traditionally don't get help. So that would be the second. And then the third one is to show without taking any stance, a non-judgmental approach, and be a friend to that person. Even if you feel you're overwhelmed and you don't have the skills, you can be a friend and say, look, this is beyond me, but we can get help.
Sure. And what if somebody didn't have a family doctor? Would you recommend the emergency room?
Emergency room would be, if it's an urgent matter, life and death, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the previous three would be my approach. Because everyone that uses the S word, I remember this goes back to my early trainings, not everyone that's suicidal needs a hospital bed. Let's not equate a hospital bed with suicidal thoughts. 15% of average Canadians have a fleeting thought of suicide. We hospitalize everyone.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. And my only other question that I had for you is I was wondering, for those people that, like myself, who have been affected with having loved ones that have committed suicide, is there any resource for them to go to for counseling?
Good question. Very good question. There's actually two. The Canadian Mental Health Association, which is part, by the way, of the local Suicide Prevention Committee. There's a local suicide prevention committee here in St. John. I used to chair it about 100 years ago when I had hair. But the bottom line is every community has a local community suicide awareness committee. And that committee concerns itself with awareness, intervention, and postvention. And out of the postvention sector, there is Hope and Healing, Canadian Mental Health Association. 633-1705 is their phone number. The Canadian Mental Health Association offer Hope and Healing twice a year. And a new agency that started, Compassionate Grief Center, also would look after grief-related, knowing that grief, as it relates to suicide, is completely different because it's complicated grief we're dealing with. And I would highly recommend people participate in the Canadian Mental Health Association or Compassionate Grief. And those resources can be accessed through the St. John and Area Suicide Committee.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with
welcome.
us today.
Okay. Councillor Hickey, do you want to wrap us up with yours?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just very quickly, thanks very much for the presentation, Greg. I don't so much of a question as more of a comment on actions taken by our Public Safety Committee. We had a report come from the police specific to the actions that have happened in the Reversing Falls Bridge. Of course, we saw the huge spikes in 2019 with 30 odd incidents happening there, and subsequent years similar numbers to that. The city is taking action to consider installing cameras at the space, and we'll continue our advocacy on putting proper fencing up there as well, and better barriers on that facility as well provincially.
Thank you very much. And as I'm fighting back the tears, I have to say. The Department of Transportation looks at numbers and they say, well, there's only one suicide. But if your Public Safety Committee, and this is music to my ears, it's part music, part tears. The police department for 10 years have been sending 30 and 40 people, sometimes 2 cars, sometimes 4 men, a run of every year for the last 10 years. Look at the money tied up in the force, and I bless myself. The police in St. John, with the 80% of the work that they do for mental health, and I'm not criticizing the mental health system. I'm saying everywhere, right across Canada, mental health is a high priority. I was working on and for, as an expert witness with the coroners on the shooting in Miramichi with the Levi case, when they go out for these, what do they call them, mental health calls. So I can't say it enough. I know my stuff, okay? And I know, and I'm glad you brought it up and not me, the police in this city go 30 to 40 times in a run of a year to that bridge, and they either talk someone down and no one hears about it, or we lose someone, 1 or 2. So jumping isn't getting captured. So bureaucrat, and nothing against the bureaucrats with the Department of Transportation, that's their expertise. They're gonna say, oh, well, we only have one suicide a year. Well, one at 750,000, you're repairing the bridge. We're not asking for anything, we're just putting the barriers up higher, like at the McDonald Bridge.
That's why we've got people like David Hickey on that committee to advocate for.
If I
people
can
like
help
you to
in
get
any
what you
way,
need.
shape, or
We
form,
have-
ex officio for any city committee, irrespective, because I live in Greater St. John.
We've got
we-
one
we
more
are
question for you, Mr. Zed. One more question. We got to
Sorry
wrap it
about
up. Councillor Sullivan?
Thanks, Deputy. Just something that Councillor Hickey said, fired some of my synapses. For council's information, it is a policy of council that we endorsed in the last council, encouraging the province to put suicide barriers on the Reversing Falls Bridge. So that hasn't gone away, and I'm glad our Public Safety Committee is talking about it again. One of the pieces of information I guess I'm curious about, because you talk about impacts, and certainly as busy as the Reversing Falls Bridge is, I'm also well aware, I've had somebody close to me witness somebody jump. And so just one of the pieces we didn't cover is the trauma experienced by the bystanders. Especially in St. John, as busy as that bridge is, the trauma goes well beyond the first responders, the person who's the victim, their family, but it certainly affects the whole neighborhood. So I really appreciate the presentation. Anytime we have an opportunity to speak about it again and remind our provincial partners that it's not that one person that succeeded. It's everybody who witnessed, it's everybody who was involved, experiences that trauma. And so we're helping a lot of people if we can get that done on the Reversing Falls Bridge. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you so much for coming in, Greg. We really appreciate your time and education on this, and hopefully more people will be getting trained in the future. Thanks again.
Okay. Thank you.
Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the agenda is item 10.1 under consideration of bylaws. And this item is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment with section 59 conditions at 730 Wilson Street and 15 O'Brien Street.
Okay, over to you, Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship, members of council. Before you for third reading this evening is a rezoning application for properties located at 730 Wilson Street and 15 O'Brien Street on the city's west side. This application is seeking a rezoning of the subject properties to facilitate a mixed-use development in 2 residential buildings with 100 units and 4 live-work units. The application did receive first and second reading on September 6th following the required public hearing. And council will recall during the council discussion that further consideration was requested with respect to imposing a condition to set reasonable timelines for the construction of the development, the details of which would be discussed with the developer and brought back to a council prior to third reading. Before you in your package is a supplemental report recommending the addition of a condition that would require the completion of the development within a 6-year timeframe from the approval of the rezoning. And if this condition is not met, council can take steps to repeal the rezoning approval. I did want to note, we do have a minor wording change to the information in your package, and Mr. Reed is just going to bring it up shortly here on screen. But based on direction and advice from General Counsel, we are proposing to add greater clarity on the definition of completion, and we'll just bring up the revised wording for you in a moment. And I would note that the timeline that we're recommending does not in any way impact or prejudice the discussion, the broader discussion that we're having with Growth Committee and Council around timelines for development, but it will provide additional assurance that development will come forward in a reasonable timeframe. So with that, Your Worship, we are recommending that you proceed to move forward with the third reading and imposition of the Section 59 condition as shown on screen, and I'll turn it back over to your worship for the required motions.
Thank you, Commissioner. City Clerk, the motion.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So in this instance, we require 4 separate motions. The first motion would be a third reading in entirety, then a second motion to rescind the previous Section 39, another motion for Section 59, and a third reading by title. So we'll begin with a motion for reading in its entirety.
Could I get a motion for third reading in its entirety? Councillor Hickey and Councillor Harris. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried.
This is titled a bylaw number CP 111-138, a law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John. The zoning bylaw of the City of St. John enacted on the 15th day of December 2014 is amended by amending Schedule A, the zoning map of the City of St. John, by rezoning a parcel of land having an area of approximately 3,118 square meters located at 15 O'Brien Street, also identified as PID number 00415-711, from 2-unit residential to general commercial pursuant to a resolution adopted by Common Council under Section 59 of the Community Planning Act. Now a motion is required to rescind the previous Section 39 condition.
Could I get a motion to rescind the previous section? Councillor Killen, Councillor Radwan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried.
A separate motion to approve the new Section 59 condition.
Could I get a motion to accept the new Section 59 conditions, please? Councillor Killen and Councillor Hickey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, we got a question. Go ahead, Councillor Lowe.
Yeah, I got a question. Like, it seems now that it's to be completed from the rezoning comes into effect. Is that because the problem we're having is that we're going to PAC, we're going to council, we're getting a rezone, then we don't see them no more. They don't come and get a permit, and this stops that. Is that why that's changed?
Your worship, through you to the councillor, what this would do is it would basically tighten the timeline. So typically some of these have been referenced from the date the permit is issued, so it's more of a construction timeline. There is some, within our building bylaw, a permit is valid for 2 years and then it can be extended for another year. What this does is it really narrows up that window from when the rezoning's approved, the clock starts ticking, until you get basically folks living in the building through the certificate.
I think we're saying the same thing. Like our problem on PAC has been, and even council's problem, is that you spend money, PAC, you spend money in it to get things rezoned, come to council, and then they don't get a building permit. And if you look in tomorrow growth committee, you can see all the things have been approved by council, PAC, and there's no permit to actually do the work, and this eliminates that, I believe.
Yes, it does really put the impetus on the developer to get a permit in a timely manner, because essentially, tonight the clock would start ticking.
Good, I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So on the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion carried.
And a final motion, Deputy Mayor, for third reading by title.
Can I get a motion for third reading by title? Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Lowe. On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried.
A law to amend the zoning bylaw of the City of St. John.
Okay, next item, commentary.
Next item's under item 11, submission by council members. We have a submission by Councilors Harris and Killen, 11.1 on your agenda, municipal housing entity creation.
Okay, over to you guys.
Thank you.
Just for the public's information, one of you will read the motion, and then we'll get a seconder, and then you guys will work it out. Okay?
Yes, I know it's a little out of the ordinary, but I assure you there's a lot of work that went in from both of us here. So the motion tonight is resolve that the city manager investigate the creation of a municipal housing entity for the city of St. John to implement the Affordable Housing Action Plan and any other initiatives that may address the housing crisis in St. John.
Okay, and the second, Councillor Hickey.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll kick this off and then toss it over to Councillor Harris after. The city of St. John is in a housing crisis. There are more jobs on the market right now from the expanding industries, yet there's more people who are actually at risk of losing their job or losing their homes. This has come through very clearly in our housing needs assessment and also with the Affordable Housing Action Plan itself. I actually moved today for the third time in the last year due to a number of housing insecurity issues. And I've been a renter in St. John since 2005. Up until 2020, this was an affordable option for me. A university grad, highly privileged white woman, I'm a canary in the housing coal mine. The strife that you go through when you are told your rent is going to go up by more than 60% in order to be able to move from a place that someone purchased and you were then told that you had to leave has been incredibly troubling for myself and my young family. The amount of money spent in the last year, the amount of time spent, the amount of insecurity felt by all of us has been incredibly traumatic. And I assure you, I'm the tip of the iceberg. I won't tell the stories of the many folks in St. John who have been housing insecure, but I can assure you there are many, many, many of them. We need an entity to action the Affordable Housing Action Plan. An outside entity does not put the entire onus on our city staff to implement. We need to answer a call to support for our incredible nonprofit housing network and guide those who want to get into building affordable housing, starting co-ops, and want to contribute to solve this issue. Historically, we've always been involved in this. St. John has been a champion for ensuring housing for all for decades and actually since the formation of our city. As the chair of growth, I feel it is critical that we're preparing for growth to the best of our ability. The ability to offer an affordable housing landscape is in and of itself a growth opportunity. As I previously mentioned here around the Horseshoe, we are a government and not a business. We need to do the best job we can to help facilitate and provide housing for all St. Johners. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Harris.
Thanks. Just to pile on to what my fellow councillor said, this has been a lot of work. Just to kind of back things up, I mean, this is a story of housing insecurity. 2019, my family had 2 kids at the time. My wife was pregnant, and our tenancy was terminated because we weren't a good fit, and had to figure out where we were going to live. Now you can do that in this market right now. Anybody has a tenant? You say, I don't like them there. They got kids. The kids are loud. The other tenants don't like them. Kick them out because they're not a good fit. Now, I'm a white guy as well. We talked about privilege. I know who to call. I have friends. And the tribunal ruled that the landlord was within her right because I was late for rent one time. Late. Paid it, but I was late. So we know the issue that we have here. And I think we both believe, it's time that we look at the opportunity for standing up an entity that wakes up every morning with one thing on their mind. How do we deliver homes to the people that need them? The research is mounting. The shortages are huge across this country. It's clear that cities and their government will once again have to play a major role in supporting the housing needs of its people. The job isn't getting done right now. We've talked about the history of this city. We have Canada's first public housing project, 1943 at Rockwood Court. We've learned a lot since then. We've learned that we can't stick people into the same area with the same ethno-demographical, class realities. We've learned a lot about what it means to do housing well, to build mixed neighborhoods. We have some good examples in St. John. We have some difficult examples in St. John and many other cities. An entity that is situated with that sole mission can begin to coordinate that housing landscape with our private developers, our nonprofit developers. But what we need to understand is, what is that structure? There's many entities out there, and this is kind of why this motion is worded this way. Because we need staff and our city manager to do that work to figure out what is the entity that's going to work best to get us the funding opportunities that we currently can't get, to navigate those bureaucratic levels between the federal and provincial governments, and to coordinate the people who are already at the table trying to build to make their lives easier. We have 5 or 6 nonprofit developers in the city. They all have to have one person on their books that are trying to navigate multiple levels of government with multiple funding opportunities with the designs that they have. And we need to streamline it. And we believe this is one potential thing that a municipal housing entity could accomplish. So won't go into this is months and months of work, trying to figure out what this best practice would be. So that's why we're putting it before our colleagues tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris. We've got Councillor Ogden. You're up first.
Yeah, I fully support this. Councillor Harris mentioned Rockwood Court. I'm not sure of the structure of how that took place. And I know that it was groundbreaking for St. John to be the first, but I lived in Rockwood Court as a kid, not in 1943. But I lived in it as a kid, and I know an awful lot of people who grew up there. And the housing was actually quite good. My parents used to take us down to Crown Street, where they were actually, the fire department would actually bulldoze the slums and light them on fire. And then my mom and dad used to take food down. And I just remember as a kid that I thought that we lived in a great place. So I think that St. John's done this before, and we need to do it again. And we're very different than Fredericton and Moncton. We have an older housing stock, I believe the oldest in the country. And we have lots of empty lots, and we have lots of people looking for housing. So all the resources are there, or all the reasons are there, I should say. So I think this is a good idea, that if we could come up with some sort of entity that could get people working and get people living in good housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hickey.
Thanks very much, Deputy Mayor. I do have a question for staff, but I guess I'd just start by saying I think this is a great step. Currently, the dynamics in St. John are such that 46% of our population rents. Comparing that to our outlying areas, about 10% do. The demographics are stark in that, and as we see the potential loss of a rent cap, as we see the changes and pretty consistent changes, I think, in the market, the risk to, as both Councillor Harris and Killen have alluded to, the risk to renters is substantial. Our affordable housing plan identified 4 areas that St. John has gaps in terms of the housing continuum. And I think it's important that, and further to that, our plan also acknowledges the need for a housing facilitator. I think this goes a step further and says, let's make sure that we can have that body that is going after that is their sole focus of making sure that this is a reality. You know, you see new funds, whether it's set up by the federal government and the Housing Accelerator Fund, or be it the province, that are more increasingly targeting municipalities to start going after funding. And those are opportunities for us to do so, especially when we're competing with other maritime and Atlantic Canadian cities like Halifax and St. John's, who already have built structures to go after that funding in their cities. I think it's important that we take that step to do so. Further, our action plan, addresses 6 objectives that I think we need to focus on and go after those. In particular, that's what I hope to see captured in this motion. I guess further to that, my question to staff is, when it comes to timelines on something like this, and when it comes to budgeting around something like this, I'm hoping some clarity can be offered there, because we've recognized the urgency of the housing crisis that we're in. I want to make sure that we're acting swiftly and within our work plan too, I guess.
City Manager.
Deputy Mayor, through you to the councillor. First of all, certainly recognize the housing crisis that we have, and certainly recognize the sense of urgency required to deal with it. That said, you do not stand up a municipal housing agency overnight, and there's going to be quite a bit of work associated with that. And we also have to remember that the work plan for 2022 is still in progress and quite full. Certainly, this has to be in place, and we've already been looking at this before the motion was introduced. This has to be in place before the province delegates certain social responsibilities down to the cities or to the regions on the 1st of January 2024. We have to be ready for that eventuality if it happens. So this entity would have to be up and running in time for that. However, we've also gotten indicators from the province that they're willing to move more quickly on housing. And if they move more quickly, we'll have to move more quickly. This is a 6 to 8 month project once you start it in terms of getting all of the necessary consultations done, engagement of stakeholders, legal considerations, governance considerations. So although we have not designed Work Plan 2023 yet, that's something we still need to do, if I was to hazard a guess this evening, I would hazard that this is done and ready to be implemented in the first half of 2023. So some 6 to 8 months from now.
Will be included in Work Plan 23.
I'm sorry?
Sections of this will be included in Work Plan 23 then?
Oh, the entirety of this motion will be included in the work plan for 2023. What I just don't know is whether we have it up and running at the end of Q2, at the end of Q3, at the end of Q4. And I think the province will drive that timeline to a degree, depending on what the decisions they make. But to be clear, even if the province does not choose to delegate the housing responsibility down to the municipal level, there is still a requirement for this entity, because this entity will be the centralized coordinating function for the implementation of the Affordable Housing Action Plan. The one person that we have within the plan is a coordinator. That person is not an entity. That person cannot hope to do all the work that would be required. Thank you.
And City Manager, just quickly, will a component of what you come back with be part of the budget associated with that as well?
Well, it's going to have to be. Okay. It's going to have to be. There's a cost associated with this.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So it sounds like staff's on board. I guess we'll call the question then. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Motion's carried. Thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next on the agenda is an item that was removed from the consent agenda, and it was on your consent agenda as item 5.1. It's now item 14.1. It's a report entitled Dog Control Service Agreement Contract Renewal.
Okay, and I believe that was Councillor Radwan that removed it. Councillor Radwan?
I actually don't have any questions, Deputy. I just wanted to vote separate.
I'm sorry? Oh, you just want to vote separately? Okay. All right. Can I get a, what? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Harris.
Just a question about some of this process around this part of it. Is there anything that has been discussed, looked at as far as electronic registration permitting for some of these licenses needed? Like, I know they're pretty inexpensive for dogs, things like that, cats. So I'm just wondering, is this something that has been discussed? Was it sidelined because I wasn't here? Was it sidelined because of, the cybersecurity attack? Was there concerns there, or has it just never been on our radar?
City Manager.
Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, through you to the councillor. The short answer is we've not looked at any of that. This is a simple renewal of a service that seems to be working well enough.
Yep.
For sure, it could stand some improvement as we move forward, but this is a renewal of a service because I'll use an expression, excuse me, we have bigger fish to fry elsewhere.
Right. Yep.
So this is a simple renewal, and that's the rationale behind this.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, so I got a mover and a seconder. Councillor Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any. Councillor Radwan, okay. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next item is under general correspondence. It's item 15.1, and it does contain 5 separate submissions by A. Johnson, and there's a recommendation to receive these submissions receive and file the submissions.
Okay, can I get a motion to receive and file 15-1 to 15-4, please? Paul Radwan and Councillor Killen, or Councillor Harris. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, okay. Anybody against? Carried, thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next is item 15.2, a submission by NB Center of Excellence request to present respecting fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. And there's a recommendation to refer this to the Public Safety Committee for consideration.
Okay, Councillor Radwan?
Thank you, Deputy. I'm fine with this going to public safety, but I'm just wondering, I feel like there could be incredible value in actually presenting this to council for the public to see. I mean, not that they can't access public safety, but we probably have a bigger audience here.
Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, through you to the councillor. That's still a possibility with this motion. All we're doing is referring it to public safety. They will look at it. They will decide whether they wish to hear the presentation or see a written submission. There's a number of different options. And at any point in time, if the Public Safety Committee feels that there is merit in all of council listening to it, then that can be a recommendation of the Public Safety Committee. So the door is not closed to speak at council, but as we try to empower our committees a little bit more, we thought that the best place for this to start would be in public safety.
Sure.
Thank you. Can I get a mover and a second to this? Gary Ogden and Joanna Killen. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion is carried. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next is item 15.3. It's with respect to the annual general meeting of the Pension Board of Trustees, and there's a recommendation to refer this to the city manager.
Okay, can I get a motion to refer to the city manager, please? Councillor Sullivan, Councillor Stewart, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion is carried. Thank you. Next item, Common Clerk.
15.4 on your agenda is a submission by Sophia Recovery Center, Sunny Side Up event. It's a recommendation to refer this to the clerk's office to purchase tickets for those interested council members.
Okay, Councillor Radwan's moving it. Councillor Lowe is seconding it. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any, motion's carried. Next item, Common Clerk.
Next item is item 17.1 on your agenda, and this is a staff submission. This is a recommendation from Committee of the Whole with respect to compressed work week trial.
Okay, over to you, City Manager.
Jonathan, you got to activate the mic. Members of council, good evening. It truly is my pleasure this evening to introduce a trial initiative for the City of St. John employees that is being referred to as the compressed work week. It is an innovative and exciting opportunity for us to care for our employees, but also to care for the corporation. The bottom line up front is that we are recommending that the majority of the workforce transition to a compressed work week. That is to say, that they would work 4 days per week, usually the Monday through Thursday, and they would work longer days so that the total number of hours worked remains constant. It would be done on a trial basis, and I'll explain why as we move through the presentation. And we would, of course, because it is a trial, monitor and measure outcomes, evaluate benefits, and analyze the disadvantages during the length of the trial. The intent, in short, is to take advantage of the known benefits of being fewer days at work. A quick sidebar on terminology. You will hear both the terms 4-day work week and compressed work week within the various literature. The 4-day work week is commonly held as a concept whereby you only work 4 days a week, but you reduce the number of hours worked while maintaining your salary. The compressed work week is different. For the compressed work week, you also reduce the number of days worked, but you do not reduce the numbers of hours worked. You work the same number of hours in a compressed time frame, hence the name, What this does, certainly for public-facing organizations and for the public sector, is it does to a degree justify no reduction in pay and no reduction in compensation for the employees. I could spend a lot of time speaking about case studies and various benchmarking and various research that exists, and we did use the Chapman Group to help us with this. I'm not going to go through this slide in detail, but it's safe to say that there are many examples now, internationally and even in Canada, where notions of a 4-day work week primarily, but in some instances a compressed work week, has in fact been implemented, and the results have been compelling. If you take a look, for example, at Perpetual Garden, a New Zealand organization, you see on this slide a graphical representation of some of the benefits that they experience by going to a compressed work week. Stress levels went down, work-life balance improved, and productivity remained consistent, or in some cases, improved. Most of the examples that were shown on the previous slides were private sector organizations, private companies. If you wish to explore within the public sector, there are far fewer examples, but Iceland is a case in point. And in Iceland, both the Reykjavik City Council and the national government explored the possibility of a 4-day work week. The results were outstanding to the point where Iceland is in fact converting permanently to a 4-day work week, and shown in blue at the bottom is the main reasons why. They found that they maintained or increased productivity even by going to 4 days, including the provision of service, and that workers' well-being and work-life balance also significantly improved. When you sum up the various documents, after-action reviews, and other observations on those who have trialed reduced work weeks, you see benefits both for the employee and the employer. The benefits for the employee center around the work-life balance, improved mental health, improved physical health, and actually some cost savings in terms of commute time, number of lunches, etc. The benefits for the employer are even more compelling. Most organizations have witnessed reduced absenteeism, improved productivity, to a small degree, but still important, a lower carbon footprint, improved teamwork, collaboration, because everybody feels good about being at work. Anecdotally, and I stress only anecdotally at this time, but comments that this helps with gender equality, in that the moms seem to be better able to balance being a mother and having a career. And above all, from an employer point of view, most organizations, in fact all organizations that I'm aware of, commented on improved talent attraction and retention. Talent attraction and retention is a significant issue right now in the city of St. John. And this slide shows those sorts of positions that we have had difficulty recruiting for and finding quality candidates within the city staff. It has been a struggle, and anything that we can do to improve attraction and retention will pay benefits. With these lessons learned, there's also some areas to guard against and to pay attention to. Most documentation will tell you it is not suitable for everyone, nor is it suitable for all functions that may be performed by a company or an organization. What came through loud and clear within the research is the requirement for critical mass. And if you let everybody do whatever they want, whenever they want, then you don't have the team in the right position at the right time to actually accomplish the job. The other concern with the compressed work week, which doesn't really apply in the 4-day work week, is the notion that they work more Mondays to Thursdays, as the example, and yet are still expected to be responsive on the Friday. You are then actually asking your workforce to work more. Also, within a public service sector, there is the possibility of increased overtime if you take a day and turn it into a weekend. And that will, of course, need to be closely monitored within the trial. There is all sorts of other anecdotal evidence that I could provide to you about the benefits and the validation of a compressed or a 4-day work week. This slide has many of them. I'll highlight up top Microsoft, a very reputable company, where they can easily measure productivity, saw a 40% increase in Japan in their productivity when they went to a 4-day work week. We saw Adam Bank have an actual 500% increase in job applications when they announced that they were going to go to a 4-day work week. And Henley Business School did 2 studies, one in 2019 and one in 2021. And you can see in the sub-bullets there the clear advantages through their analysis of going to the 4-day work week. Anecdotally, again, there's a number of other considerations that lend credence to the notion of going to 4 days. Everything from the fact that employees more and more wish it, and you see that within the statistics on this slide, that it is an important benefit that people are now starting to expect or would wish to have. 66% of surveyed workers wanted to work less than 5 days a week, based on a study by Robert Half. And you see the other comments on this slide. There's also some compelling data about care of employees. Research of the Standard & Poor's 500 index found that companies that survived for less than 20 years actually had profit and customer service as their first 2 priorities and employees as their 3rd priority. They simply did not survive. Southwest Airlines, the only airline I would suggest to you in the world that has had 46 consecutive years of profit, has consistently listed employees as their first priority and have walked the talk. But more compelling to me is the Harvard study, where they looked at 207 publicly traded companies over a period of 11 years, and you can see the dramatic productivity difference between those who were employee-focused versus those who were focused on profit. The bottom line is shown in italics at the bottom. The reality is when employees feel undervalued, their performance lowers and then negatively affects customer service, which then negatively affects profit. Now, we are not in this, of course, for profit, but we certainly are in it for customer service. So, the compressed work week that we are suggesting and recommending to Common Council is as follows. That first of all, it would apply to those not currently on shift. We already have approximately 39% of our workforce that is on some form of compressed work week because they are shift workers doing more than 8-hour shifts, such as our firefighters, such as certain people within our parks department during the summer months, etc. It would, however, apply to most of the rest, with some exceptions that I'll speak about in a few moments. It would apply to all regular and casual full-time employees, again, with some of those same corporate exceptions. Should council be supportive of this, we are recommending that it be a 1-year trial with performance measurement of the outcomes. How this works for compressing 5 days worth of work into 4 is shown on the next bullet in terms of how an individual worker's number of hours expands through the work week. Because this will cause family challenges and personal challenges, part of this concept will also be to introduce flexible start times with the necessary approvals and the ability to reduce lunch hour, again, with the necessary approvals. We will be focused in order to ensure we have critical mass that the compressed work week be Monday to Thursday for everyone possible, and Friday would be the day off. I spoke quickly about exceptions. There will be 2 types. First will be the corporate exceptions. The reality is that there are certain services that we deliver that must continue to be delivered at least 5 days a week. And for example, in Parks and Recreation, 7 days a week. Within water, 7 days a week. For those where this is a requirement, we will have to exempt certain work groups and employees from the program because of the needs of the corporation. There will also be personal exceptions. We fully recognize that there will be employees who simply will not be able to make the longer days work for them. The most obvious example of that is perhaps a single mom or a single dad who has commitments with their school-age children immediately after the school day and cannot find an alternative approach. As we work through the concept, again, should we receive support of council this evening, we still have some work to do on the considerations tied to absences. What's the definition of a statutory day moving forward? How do we manage vacation time, etc.? And the team is working on that as we speak. I mentioned it as a trial. We must measure our performance, and we are fortunate in a way that we are about to introduce to you a new performance management framework that will go a long way towards helping us monitor that performance. But we are also doing pre and post employee surveys. We will, of course, monitor absenteeism. We will see what this does to recruitment and retention. We will closely follow our customer service statistics and our one-stop shop development statistics. With Friday being a day off, this also gives us an outstanding opportunity to address a need that we have heard from many within the community, that they would wish to be able to go to our customer service towards the end of the workday. Once they finish their own day, come to City Hall and do business at City Hall. So with this opportunity that we have, we can extend our customer service hours to be between 8:30 and 6 p.m. on a daily basis, but that will be Mondays through Thursdays. And Friday will be emergency or critical customer service response, much the same way we do now on evenings and weekends. So again, if council were to support this evening, the next steps will be to finalize the policy document that would be in support of the approved policy statement that we have as a recommendation for you this evening. There will, of course, be a deliberate rollout and communication strategy. Not only does our public need to be aware, our public needs to understand how this will be implemented. I want to stress that other than changes to our customer service center hours of operation, quite frankly, the community won't notice this at all. All other services are going to continue to be delivered as planned. We would hope to begin implementation on the 17th of October, and there is still quite a bit of coordination to do between now and then. So in summary, again, should council be supportive of this, we would like to implement a 4-day compressed work week beginning 17 October. All employees would work at least the same number of hours, and in fact, in certain cases, more hours may be worked. This would require municipal offices to be closed Friday through Sunday, but it would afford us an opportunity to have extended morning and evening hours for customer service and the one-stop shop. Online payments, of course, would continue to be 7 days a week. Key services in public works, the city market, our recreational facilities, transit and parking enforcement, St. John Water, and public safety services will continue to serve the community reliably as they do now without interruption because of this program. Again, there will be no effect on those services. The transition, again, should this be approved by council, would be for a pilot for 1 year, and common council meetings would continue as planned. We believe that should this be supported, that we could achieve the goals shown here. We will maintain our productivity and provision of service. We will provide extended customer service hours. We will provide that very much cherished balance between work and life commitments for our employees, which should then support an organization that must continue to be focused on retaining and attracting quality employees. Why the shift? We know there's a demand for innovative changes to how employees are managed and treated. We believe there's significant benefits. We believe that this will help us in our attempts to strive to be considered a top employee. It's progressive, it's evidence-based, and therefore we believe we should take advantage of the opportunity. There will be some corporate exemptions to ensure that service delivery continues. Therefore, your city manager is recommending that Common Council of the City of St. John approve the following policy statement that would enable the implementation of the 4-day work week. Deputy Mayor, subject to questions, and I'll return to my seat for that. That concludes the briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, City Manager. Any questions? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder, Barry Ogden. Question? Councillor Harris.
Thanks. Just a pretty phenomenal overview of this entire thing, City Manager. Thank you for all your work, giving us a lot of opportunity to see how it's been implemented in other places and what the results have been. I think the one thing I picked up on that I'm most interested in is I know last year in the work plan budget, we were really going after this performance management system, and you made reference to it tonight. But I'm just curious, where are we at with that performance management system, and what, we've talked about it before, and I brought it up in our labor force report. I personally am much more, when think about productivity, I like to think we can make decisions based on how productive people are at work, not just count the sick days, not just do those things and figure out what's stopping that productivity or in the way. So I'm very interested to hear anything you'd have to say about the performance management system on that front.
Deputy Mayor, through you to the councillor, 3 or 4 quick points for you. First of all, it remains on track. We committed to have the new framework in place in 2022. I still believe that will occur. We've done a lot of work with contracted support from EY, and I'm confident in our ability to meet that timeline. My second point is, I wouldn't want anybody to make the faulty assumption that we don't measure performance now. We have all sorts of departmental dashboards, all sorts of data. I mean, we monitor statistics on permits and do we meet our targets or not. We monitor PCI on road conditions. There's all sorts of data now. What we don't have is a good way to have it packaged in a framework that is easily digestible to the senior leadership team for resource allotment and to this council for policy decisions, yearly budget discussions, et cetera. That's what we're working on, and I'm confident that we'll have it in place in time to use it as a tool to make sure that a year from now, again, should this be approved this evening, a year from now, we can say that our performance is satisfactory or not.
So if I understand it correctly, we're really talking about, with this performance management, I'm not amalgamating, it's not the right word, but bringing it all to a place that starts to highlight those key performance indicators. If we use that word, we have a lot of this tracking in place. It's just not accessible and shared as you say, digestibly. Is that?
Yeah, and it's also not packaged in line with council priorities and the strategic plan that's in draft form.
Right.
So as we measure our performance, it should not be what's important to John Collin as city manager or what's important to any one commissioner. It should be what's important in terms of achieving council's priorities. So that's what we're working on now. So the key performance indicators, we've actually gone through a very deliberate exercise to make sure that the KPIs get mapped to council's priorities and to the strategic plan.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law.
Sorry, Councilor.
Good. I asked this in closed session, and I got an answer from the city manager. But I think the public would want to know, after we say that we're going to work Monday to Thursday, if it snows Friday, who plows the streets?
We plow the streets, but much the same way as if it snows at midnight, we plow the streets, but we do it with overtime.
Saturday, Sunday, the same, if it snows.
We will plow the streets. We will satisfy the service level expectations within the winter storm management plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. So can I get a motion then for the recommendation? Councillor Hickey and Councillor Ogden. On the question then, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Thank you. Next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Next, Deputy Mayor, 17.2, it's a resolution that came from Committee of the Whole with respect to 450 Fallsview Drive. The recommendation would read that staff be directed to demolish the building located at 450 Fallsview Drive as part of the 2023 operating plan on or before May 31, 2023.
Okay, can I get a motion for the recommendation, please? Councillor Stewart? Councillor Radwin? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Next item, please.
Next is item 17.3. It's an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with Cook Aquaculture, and it's an amendment to that. The resolution would read that the city enter into amendment number 1 to the Memorandum of Understanding with Cook Aquaculture, Inc. in the form presented to Committee of the Whole at the September 26, 2022 meeting for potential land transaction, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the said amendment number 1 to the Memorandum of Understanding.
Okay, could I get a motion for the amendment? Councillor Lowe, Councillor Sullivan? On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Next item.
Next is item 17.4. It's a Committee of the Whole resolution with respect to consideration of sale of remnant land off Barker Street. And the resolution would read, resolved that the city agreed to sell a parcel of land identified as PID 24596 to NJP Developments, Inc. for $4,000 plus HST, with all costs associated with the sale of the land to be the sole responsibility of the purchaser, and the closing date to occur on or before December 31, 2022, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents necessary to effect the transaction.
Okay, can I get a motion, please, for the... Could I get a motion, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Hickey and Councillor Rodman. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion's carried. Next item, please, Councillor Clerk.
Next is 17.5, Committee of the Whole recommendation with respect to National Truth and Reconciliation Day. And the resolution would be resolved that whereas National Truth and Reconciliation Day is a federally recognized holiday, be it resolved that the National Truth and Reconciliation Day be proclaimed as a public holiday in the city of St. John.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Lowe, and Councillor Radma.
Thank you, Deputy. I just wanted to clarify why I'm voting against this. I just want to thank Councillor Stewart because I appreciate the sentiment of this. I certainly want to support our Indigenous community in truth and reconciliation. However, I feel that with our governance structure and our arm's length that we have with the Police Commission, it is not our place to be making this change. If, you know, it's a totally separate conversation to whether or not to have a police commission, but I just, based on our governance structure, it's not our place to make this decision, in my opinion.
Thank you. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Motion is carried. Next item, Councillor Clerk.
And the final item is 17.6. It's a recommendation from Committee of the Whole with respect to appointment of Chief Administrative Officer. And the resolution reads, resolved that the Committee of the Whole recommends that Brent McGovern be appointed to the position of City Manager and serve as the Chief Administrative Officer of the City of St. John pursuant to Section 71(2) of the Local Governance Act and the City of St. John Government Act, with such appointment being upon the terms and conditions set out in the correspondence addressed to Mr. McGovern and dated September 20th, 2022, and further that the mayor be authorized to sign the contract and any ancillary documents thereto.
Thank you. I get a mover, Councillor Lowe and Councillor Sullivan. On the question, all those in favor? Oh, wait a minute now. Councillor Radwan?
Well, Deputy, I was hoping that you'd make a couple of comments, but I know I certainly can. But I really want to recognize first, if we can, and thank John Collin, the city manager. I know that he's still here and for a little while longer until the end of the year-ish. But thank you for your service to the city and to the country, actually, in all of your work that you've done. And a big congratulations to Brent McGovern. We're very confident in your abilities to grabbing the bull by the
Counselor,
horn and
we have to call the question.
oh, if this goes through, right? So anyway, I'm
Yeah.
just too excited.
We will
obviously.
probably all have some comments afterwards.
Okay, good. Well, anyway, I've already made mine.
Okay, on the question
you.
then, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, now I'll give everybody an opportunity to, no. Okay, I'm not going to do that, I guess. I thought I was. Anyway, I'll take the opportunity to congratulate you, Brent, and we look forward to working with you in the future as we have in the past. You do a great deal for the city, and we really appreciate it. And yes, go ahead. And I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank our present city manager, who's going to be with us till Santa Claus comes probably. But anyway, for everything that you've done in the past and the things that you have to tidy up and finish up for, before you hand over the reins. You've done a terrific job, and we all appreciate everything that you and your staff has done for the city. So thank you very much, both of you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
That was the final item, Deputy. Just a motion to adjourn would be.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn? Councilor Lowe, Councilor Stewart. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, if any? Thank you. Why'd you stop me?